Life. Let's go. Hello.
We are live. This is episode 4 of the Practical AI Show. We have
Yep.
quite a slate for you today. Olga has gathered the most compelling AI related content from the entire internet. She went over the whole thing and she's got an amazing list of topics for us today. I can't wait to get started. And I was reading over the show notes before we started, and I just can't believe that we're 4 episodes deep and I'm more excited for every show. Like a lot of things like this, I want to start this thing, I'm excited, and you get into it and it kind of fizzles. This is going in the opposite direction. I can't even believe what's on tap for today. I'm super hyped. So let's turn it over to Olga. We'll get started.
Yep. I crawled the internet for you guys, and I'm very pumped about today because like Chris said, the week there's so much going on. There's so much happening, and I'm so proud of us doing this because I feel like there's so much going on that's overwhelming. So it's nice to like sit down once a week and be like, okay, what's actually happening, and how do we use this? More importantly, how do we actually use this for our benefit, and how do we benefit from this? Because it's like a fire hose. Is that the English saying? Like
It is a fire hose, yeah.
and like there's so much happening it's so easy to throw in the towel and say, you know what, it's just too much. So we're going to talk about practical applications today. There's some news that are pretty interesting out there, and then of course we're going to have some spicy takes from our co-host Chris. He always has a lot of interesting things to talk about. So let's get to it. Because my goal is to really get it done in an hour today, because I really want us to get it like an hour.
A tight show.
We will see what happens.
Narrator,
So
they won't do it.
We're gonna get started today with the article that I saw on LinkedIn, actually, by Darmesh, and I adore Darmesh. I like the way he thinks, and he is the CTO and co-founder of HubSpot. For those of you who don't know. And I've always liked his way of thinking because he's got his own little things, how he likes to get things done. But as I was reading this article, I was like, we got to include this, and let's kind of kick this off with that article. So basically what he's talking about is that AI won't kill. Is that you sharing this?
That's me. We've got a visual, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, you gotta warn me next time. AI won't kill software. It'll catapult it. So some of the major key takeaways were AI is not killing software, it's transforming it. Just as SaaS redefined software from on-prem to the cloud, AI is redefining how software is built, delivered, and monetized. The market will expand, not shrink. Number 2 key takeaway was paradigm shift in software UX and integration. From web browsers to AI-first interfaces, apps inside ChatGPT, from APIs for humans to model context protocols, MCPs, for AI agents, and from static pricing models to consumption outcome-based pricing. That's the second takeaways. And kind of, do you want to take them one at a time, or do you want me to get through?
Yeah, we got to unpack these. There's a lot here. So I'm going to stop sharing this so I can look at some notes.
Okay.
But so basically, Darmesh's thesis is that so there's, people are saying, oh, AI is going to kill software. And Darmesh is saying, not the case. AI is going to catapult software. And this is a direct callback to a theme that we've been hammering every week. It's called the Great Refactoring. Quick recap. What is the Great Refactoring? It is our collective realization that in order to take advantage of AI in ways that are powerful and that elevate us, we must refactor all of our existing software systems. Nothing that we currently rely on in terms of like hardcore infrastructure is built to leverage AI in the ways that can really, take us, send the rocket off into space. And therefore, we are now facing a period of time here where we must refactor all of our systems so that we can take advantage of the AI landscape.
Yep.
This is the Great Refactoring. This is what I'm considering the greatest engineering achievement in human history. It's going to happen over the next 5 years. It's unbelievable. It's going to touch everything that we currently do. It's going to touch all of our workflows. Like everything is going to change because of this.
Yep. And you've talked a lot about how it's transforming it. It's not killing it. But what I thought it was interesting, because I was actually looking for APIs for one of the projects I work on for my other business. And so from APIs for humans, we talk about how we think about everything for humans on the internet. But now he's talking about model context protocols, MCPs, for AI agents. And I was like, I'm just learning APIs for humans, and now there's MCPs. So what do you think about, what is that like, and why do we care about MCPs?
So this is another big theme. In the previous era of internet, all the way up to now, we've produced things with the specific intent that humans will be using this stuff. They'll be consuming the content, using the stuff we provide. APIs are developer tools for developers to implement. Like say, hey, go do this. MCPs are essentially the same thing, but we give it a new name to indicate that it's AI focused. So MCPs are basically like APIs, sets of instructions, if you will, coding instructions that are specifically for AIs. What is interesting about MCPs to me that often goes unsaid is that, and this is another callback, these are the big themes, I want to hit them every week, but it's the context. AIs can take a set of instructions and do something, but that output is sort of meaningless unless it can be fit into a useful context. For me, this means like, okay, the AI gives me something. Now I need to stick this output into some kind of software, and then boom, it actually does a thing that's useful to me. So that's what MCPs are. They are rules, sets of instructions, coding instructions for AIs to give me useful output. Now, what you do with that output is kind of phase 2, stage 2, whatever you want to call that. That's a critical piece of the puzzle. That's where I'm looking.
Yeah.
But, MCPs are for AIs, just like we're talking about generative engine optimization, GEO, that's for AIs. We're shifting to producing stuff for AIs.
Okay. And then he says static pricing models will shift to consumption outcome-based pricing, which I know you love that part. So what do you think?
This is huge, and this is the biggest theme of today's show: consumption-based pricing. So a quick recap: Darmesh kind of led into this discussion by saying, the last 20 years of software was defined by this shift away from where, like in the 90s and early 2000s, companies ran their own servers. They ran their own software in-house and did all this. It's a massive undertaking. It is no small feat. There was a big shift in like 2005 and then all the way through to today to SaaS, where stuff ran in the cloud, services were centralized. So therefore, one team has to work on this app, and then many other companies can use this app or app-like functionality. And so everyone's gaining an extra layer of leverage and not having to do all this technical grunt work. So we removed one layer. Now we have another shift beyond that, but SaaS carried like recurring pricing models, like licenses. But we know that licenses don't really work for everybody. If you're in a business that has a product that needs to be licensed, and you know that, well, not everyone's going to take advantage of all the features of this. So we've got to find a price point that covers up for that doesn't allow high use users to go crazy. Like, you want to get value out of that. You don't want them like nuking it and, using thousands of dollars worth and they only pay hundreds. But you also got to have the price point high enough that, the low use people, like, you still want to capture enough value from them. Because if they were on like a pay as you go basis or something, it'd be like $2, not worth the price of admission.
Right.
So you got to find a happy medium. But that's not an exact pricing model at all. It stinks. Like, I've always struggled with this. So the big takeaway for me from Darmesh's thesis here is that AIs give us a chance now to actually pay for what we use.
Yeah.
And this is going to come up throughout the show today in very interesting ways.
Consumer, I don't know how it's going to go for investors and the profit kind of planning for companies, but I guess we'll find out.
Well, a lot of stuff's getting turned on its head.
Yeah, for sure.
The old ways don't work anymore.
So the third key takeaway was AI native companies will win. So he talks about how success depends on re-architecting software with AI embedded at the core, not as bolt-on feature, that made me chuckle, This includes AI-driven GTM onboarding, customer support, and product, UX. So we talk about how slapping things on top of things is not going to work for AI. AI has to be embedded at the core. But I was curious to kind of hear what you think about that.
It's the great refactoring.
Back to your
point.
point.
Don't build with this. And what does this really mean? So in terms of actual software, what does this mean? This means that your software, or the software that, whatever you're running, needs to have a way to receive information. It needs to be able to tell the AI, hey, I need you to provide this simple information. And then the AI gives some output, and you can stick it directly into the system and have it do something significant.
Okay.
Sounds simple enough. If we examine all of our existing systems, we look at this and like, oh crap, there's holes in this process everywhere you look. So the software must be rebuilt from the ground up with exactly those principles in play, or else it's just not going to win. It's got no chance.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm not very excited about the WordPress and kind of what's happening over there.
Well, it perfectly epitomizes the bolt-on terminology that he says. They're trying to shoehorn that into an existing thing. And I mentioned this last week, I think, but a lot of companies are spending a lot of money and time and resources right now trying to shoehorn AI into their processes. But the end result of all of these attempts is going to be, oh crap, we got to refactor.
Right. And that goes back to being bloated and all that stuff that he talks about. Software distribution, key takeaway number 4 was software distribution will be disrupted. Massive platforms like ChatGPT, 700 million weekly active users could become new app distribution centers, threatening traditional web-first strategies. So, and we'll talk about that later too, but what do you think about that?
Well, this one's really interesting, right? Like, I'm trying to imagine, what does that actually look like? So what he's saying is that, like you would use WordPress, you go download it, you install it on your site, you're getting stuff that way. You maybe get a new plugin. It's like an app store kind of format, like you go do your thing, grab that, add it. But what if this software exists natively inside your GPT conversation window? What does that look like? How does that even work? So I've got questions about that. Like, what's happening here?
Right.
Like, is everything just on GPT? You no longer have domains and stuff. It's just got information, but like it's got like a sourcing. So like Chris Pearson was the genesis of this information. Like, I don't know. I need to see some of this to like really get it, more clear in my mind. But I can kind of. Well, I kind of imagine this happening. I just need to.
The platforms will evolve even more in terms of like the platform for this, the platform for that, where you come and then some of that stuff is already sort of distributed there or like ready for use. We'll talk about what that AI app store looks like in a little bit, but
well, we've talked about this fatigue of having like 50 different things that we use in all these different places. Right. Like, clearly there's pressure there that this needs to not continue.
Yeah.
It's a natural thing that this would happen inside ChatGPT, for example. And you mentioned earlier, not on the show, but earlier to me, that ChatGPT is now the 5th most visited website in the world.
Yep.
That makes it a really good candidate for this type of centralization.
I mean, they're not even 3 years old yet. To me, if somebody told you that in 3 years there will be a website that'll be the 5th most visited website in the world, like, would you believe it? Like, I don't know.
Darmesh says this level of growth has never been seen, right? In terms of software or websites.
Literally, like, now they beat X, so X is number 6. After ChatGPT, it's really incredible. So it sounds like a new integration standard is emerging. Traditional REST APIs aren't enough, and that's why what you're building with PageMotor with AI native stack could kind of help with MCPs early. Is that something that you're kind of thinking about, or?
Oh, absolutely. So the software that we use needs to be fluent with these AI agents, or however you want to characterize these things. Like, these things need to be able to talk and to create output to do something seamlessly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm that's where my head is at. I want zero friction there. No need for human input. I want the agent to be able to say, okay, here we do this, and then maybe So last week we talked about these browsers that are AI enabled where you can actually take actions. I
Yeah.
want the AI to actually be able to take the action, like do stuff in the UI.
Yeah. Interesting. And so we talked about the outcome-based pricing. So again, I'm very curious to see what that would look like. But I'm also very excited because God knows how much money I spend every month in all subscriptions. And, as soon as I cancel, I'm like, oh, I'll have to get it back again. So like for whatever reason. So it will be very interesting to see what that's going to evolve and look like. Any practical application from all of this today that you want the audience to think about before we move on?
Yeah. So let's imagine for a moment, let's picture what these actual workflows are going to look like with AI embedded functionality in your existing systems. What does this look like? How does this work? For now, my best conceptualization looks like this. You've got your software. Let's say it's running on your website, just for the sake of example here. And you are doing something with AI, with an agent. This agent is embedded on your site, like in the admin. Well, how does that work? Well, probably through I as the provider of this software pay some token access thing, for all my users, and that's some small fee per interaction. And then you, the end user, pay a small fee to use the LLMs or the models that I've embedded in there that help you leverage the specific software you're using. So in this case, PageMotor. It would be trained on PageMotor and be able to do these significant things with the software. So you would pay 2 cents per thing, and I'm paying like half a penny per thing, and I'm making the difference there. But we're all just paying these little bits for the processing that we do. So we're not paying like a licensing fee per site or anything like that. We're only paying when we take action, which is really nice. And so there's a characterization there called the toll road of the internet. It's sort of becoming that.
I like that.
Which I don't hate. And we're going to come back to this later with Cloudflare segment. But,
yeah, because it's kind of like what you're talking about. Like we're building the highways right now, right, with PageMotor. And
this is the answer to the SaaS pricing and the recurring pricing model. You can't have a lifetime subscription. You can't have a subscription-based pricing like a number of seats that never felt right. It's arbitrary.
Yeah.
Well, cost per use is not arbitrary. So to me, that already says, hey, this is absolutely the right answer. What if you have arbitrary baselines like 10 seats or 100 sites or whatever? Those are arbitrary guesses. Those are not the right answer. Arbitrary is never the answer. Yeah. So this is a potential solution to the question of arbitrary pricing. So to me, I'm so excited about that. I love that. Pay for what you use. It makes sense to me.
Love it. All right. Well, let's move on into the next segment, which is Agent AI deep dive. So Darmesh started this, I guess, side project for where he is building #1 professional network for AI agents. And he started that, last year, I think. And it grew in like 6 months. It grew from 15,000 users to over 500,000 users with 13,000 reviews and 5,000 active agent builders. It offers a no-code builder to create AI agents for tasks like research, CRO analysis, CRM integration, marketing automation, and agents are shared and discovered in a marketplace-like ecosystem, promoting network effects. And it's built on OpenAI's O3 mini model, delivering affordable reasoning capabilities. So I actually played with it, and I don't know if anybody in the audience, played with that. They are very interesting. Like they're very simplified and very kind of simple agents, but they do simple tasks. Like I analyzed some LinkedIn posts and other things, and I'm actually thinking about publishing my own things that I've built, over there. But there's thousands of different agents out there to explore for people that want to save time and actually get some kind of result, tangible result from using them. So what are your thoughts about this? And kind of what is agent AI? Like what does that mean for the world, I guess? And what's happening?
These agents are the apps of the future. So last week every episode of the show so far, we've talked a lot about specificity. You need to give AIs very specific information. Ideally, you want them to provide very specific output. This plays on that theme of specificity. So apps do a broad range of things, but they're not highly specific. You probably only use this app for a narrow range of purposes.
Right.
This agent landscape that is emerging promises a more specific action to outcome, interaction sequence there than we've ever had before. Like everything is getting more specific, more idiosyncratic. And this actually speaks to the way everything on the internet works. Everybody has slightly idiosyncratic needs, but we use these generalized pieces of software to try and address those needs. This agent-based AI landscape says, hey, we can get more specific than we've ever gotten before. So to me, this is finally, you can imagine all these nodes, like there's a center point and there's just these infinity nodes outside of that. How do you have this like energy crawl out to all those nodes effectively? Previously, it's only like gone out to very specific branches. And there's all these branches that remain like unenergized. Well, this agent AI landscape is going to energize all those little outside nodes that were previously underserved. Really fascinating stuff.
So do you think
exciting.
Do you think that agent AI, what it's doing to plugins is kind of what PageMotor wants to do to CMSs?
Yes. Well, it creates the potential for a more specialized idiosyncratic landscape. The question of internet is, how do we solve for these idiosyncratic needs?
Mm-hmm.
We've had generalized software, so therefore we were unable to do that. Only a small fraction of operators could hire someone to create those idiosyncratic scenarios. But now if agents are performing the work, we can actually get there. We can get to more idiosyncratic outcomes for more people. So,
well, what I like about the thing that behind it is that the Darmesh is focusing on building tools that solve real tasks first and then scale. Right. So we see all this funding, which we'll talk about later, that's raising all this money and money just flowing in there. But at the end of the day, like, what problem are we actually solving? And there's not even a user yet, right? Or something like that. And so he's kind of flipping it on upside down and just sort of like in this environment, people can go and build something and have that rush. I published something, I created something, but it still lives in agent AI. So I don't know, because you still have to log in to use it. So I think it's centralized then, right?
Yes.
So it lives on his he's responsible for hosting and other things, correct?
As far as I know, with those tools, yes.
Okay.
But I still like the directionality of this. I don't really care about the specifics. The directionality is he's solving boring problems with AI.
Yes.
We like to talk about sexy, exciting, like, show me something amazing, that kind of thing. But the reality is the use case for AI is solving boring problems, solving repetitive tasks, doing the dumb stuff. That's the value landscape to me. There's the hype landscape and the value landscape. The value landscape is a lot less sexy, but this is the reality of it. This is where we're going to get the gains.
Yeah, they're saying that 3,400 agents built. It kind of was a glimpse into the future of modular function-first web systems. So like WordPress plugins, but AI native and self-running. So what they're saying is that these agents are sort of like, I guess, WordPress plugins.
Well, sort of like developers, but developers who build out exactly what you need.
Interesting.
But, here's where the savings are. You're not having to hire an agency. You have to go find this person, trust this person, pay this person, hope that they're doing the right thing. Now we're doing something in a patternized way where you got a machine that follows a pattern. Like it's going to be right or righter.
Yeah, right.
And it's going to be cheaper. It's going to be faster. It's going to be more reliable because you don't have to, what if you send the email and you don't get an email back for a week? Well, that's the reality of human interaction. We're cutting that out. Like that is huge savings for everybody.
So Agent AI proves that a task-first, no-code model works. So what's stopping CMS platforms from becoming agent platforms?
The CMS tools themselves.
So
the software.
So the future of web publishing is a site built by agents? Like, is that what's going to happen? Like you just build a bunch of agents and they'll build your site?
Well, I think it looks something like this. You install PageMotor, and then PageMotor has an agent within it, and you say, hey, Okay, I just installed you. I need an e-commerce site with a landing page for these 3 products. And you click the button and then it refreshes the screen and suddenly your site is that.
So our guys who are building in beta right now, right? So they're building the plugins, a lot of them. So is that accurately said now that they're sort of building agents in a way, or is that still like
They're not building agents yet. They're building plugins that do specific things for a website, like add forms or add a menu, like these kinds of things. So we're still doing basic stuff. That augmentation layer for AI is not fully realized yet in terms of, I'm not exactly sure how that would work. Like, do I need a relationship with Claude and a trained model? And can I embed that in the software and then have the users query that thing to do stuff? I'm not really sure. Like, that workflow is not established yet, but it's coming.
But what do you think will be the biggest difference between what is a plugin and what's an agent?
An agent connects tasks. A plugin performs a task. Connection, integration, you might want to use that word. That's what developers have been doing, is integrations. This is the dirty work of taking generalized software and making it really specific for this use case.
Okay.
Agents are going to be doing that.
Gotcha. I mean, for somebody like who is moral, I'm not moral. What am I? Human?
You're immoral.
Huh?
You're immoral.
So like mortal. I'm immortal. I'm like somebody who doesn't really understand like all the tech stuff behind it. So if you compare what you're building right now to building highways, what are the plugins then? Vehicles?
Plugins are part of the highways.
Okay.
They're part of the highways.
Okay. So it's just like what the highways build out of. And then the agent will be what to a highway?
The agent is a navigator.
Got it.
It says, I want to go from this city to this city. What's the best route? And is there anything else I need along the way?
It is crazy to start imagining the future, like how it's done, because like we are heading there and it's happening faster than we think it is, which is kind of interesting to me and fascinating in its own way. So there's also another talking point was that should PageMotor consider launching its own agent kit, a suite of AI agents for builders, creators, and marketers?
Yes, it's inevitable.
All right. Well,
absolutely.
We're heading there. I love it. And if you can build an agent in 5 minutes to solve a narrow problem, should websites become bundles of task agents rather than static pages?
I think it's going to be the case for the platforms that end up getting used the most. They're going to have that immediate access. Hey, AI, do this for me.
Because we were talking about solving my problem with consolidating all the emails that I'm getting about AI that I'm reviewing with AI, but like consolidating that even more and figuring out how to flow it all into one place, so I don't even have to do that, right? So it's kind of like that will be my agent,
right? So like you've sort of automated the process of the research for the show, but then you still have to take what the results that you get and feed those again. And then produce a meaningful output. Like, how do you have the AI start doing the feeding and connect that entire process from start to finish? Like, there's little stop gaps right now where, okay, I've got this thing. Now I need to transport this thing. It's like moving a box in a factory. We want to not be moving that box. We want the agent to move the box.
Yeah, awesome. And maybe I'll ask in the forums how to deal with that. Now, move on. Any kind of practical thing from this that you think will be useful for the audience?
I think just understanding where we're heading is important. Like if you examine your existing workflows and you identify these points where you're dragging the box across the factory to keep things moving along, that'd be one indication like, hey, this is going to change. I need to not be doing this. AI needs to be doing this. Or, if you're stuck in, like if you're a WordPress developer or something like this, and you continue to do the same tortured, repetitive process flows, like you should be like, this is not going to survive.
Right.
Like I literally can't keep doing this.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the news. So we've got Anthropic's Claude code for terminal-based coding. So it sounds like Claude Code by Anthropic now offers AI-driven coding assistance directly in the terminal, handling code suggestions, debugging, and review. and that's the news from this week, competes directly with Google's Gemini CLI in the AI developer tooling space. And the Reddit developer claimed 60% reduction in code review time using the tool. So I just bringing the news and kind of talking about what this could mean to our community, and like what are your thoughts about that?
So this is mostly for people who have swallowed the JavaScript pill over the last 15 years. So if you are a big JavaScript head using React, Vue, or any of these JavaScript frameworks, you are doing a lot of work in the terminal using like Node.js and things like this, NPM package manager, doing a lot of stuff in the terminal. Well, now Claude has a tool that works in the terminal, and Google's Gemini CLI is command line interface. That means terminal. They're having more tools to deal with workflows in those environments. I'm sure that's useful to those people. I'm more of a GUI guy myself. I like an interface like in a browser. I also think there's not really a need for a lot of terminal stuff. I know that people blasphemy. Oh my God. But like, it just depends on, if that's your preferred environment, there's advances happening there, which is, exciting. A lot of the stuff that you do in a terminal is like repetitive procedural stuff anyway. So it makes total sense to me. Like this should be have an agent do this, undertake these specific commands, or, implement these commands. That whole thing should be automated, honestly.
Gotcha. Well, again, that's just something for our developers. I was wondering if they had any takes on that and what that means, but that's good clarification in terms of what's the techie news of the week. One of the next thing that I want to move on to is key takeaways from my GPT-5 Journey, a pleasant surprise by our incredible Ken.
I'm gonna do another screen share
in our forum. And so Ken basically kind of summed up his experience with GPT-5 and kind of compared that to Claude. Do you want me to kind of read his takeaways, or shall I?
You can read some highlights.
Okay. So GPT-5, Ken says, GPT-5 outperforms Claude in technical tasks. Again, it's from his experience, and he's been doing this for decades, right? I mean, he's not a newbie. The author, so Ken says, he's an avid Claude user, but he acknowledges that GPT-5's surprising dominance in solving complex problems, especially with critical reviews between models. So what does that mean?
Well, that means he's having output from one analyzed by the other. So he had Claude analyze what GPT-5 had done, and Claude gave it a lot of praise, which is interesting, having models comment on one another. Because there's not like a barrier set up there where like I refuse to comment. It's sort of a more honest, potentially an honest transaction. So it's fascinating that Claude was very complimentary of what GPT-5 did. Not only that, it was mentioning some of the specifics. That's what I liked about it. Like the feedback it gave, it mentioned the specifics about what was good about GPT-5's code.
Did it say what was bad? I don't know, but maybe
I do not think it talked about anything bad. I think that's sort of the affirmation bias.
Yeah, that we talked about. So then another key takeaway was that LLM cross-reviewing as best practice. So letting one model audit another output is proving to be a high yield approach. And so GPT-5 won 8 out of 10 head-to-heads. What do you think about that?
Well, I kind of like that, because that sort of pushes back against the hallucination idea that these LLMs will hallucinate some output. So you can have one check the work of another, because that's a procedural, repetitive sort of thing. If the models can be trusted to do that well, that's pretty huge, because code review is a big deal. It eats up a lot of time in companies. So if that process can be smoothed out or improved or enhanced in some way by the use of AI, like if you're like a team in Google, you're like salivating, like, oh my God, this is huge. Because we're spending a lot of time just doing code review, which is a torturous, sort of thankless task.
So now you have one model review the other and vice versa, and that's kind of becoming like maybe a good practice to do for developers.
Interesting stuff there.
So next one was Claude still leads in creative writing, according to Ken. In his experience, Claude remains favored for stylistic mimicry. Is that how you say it? Mimicry and long form writing due to extended content and tone adaptability. So I thought that was interesting. And then tool specialization is the future. Rather than loyalty to one model, creators and developers are increasingly using each for its strengths. And I agree here with Ken. Like I'm a big fan of Grok for all the latest trends and kind of, it's like my cool friend that knows a lot. And then ChatGPT for writing and other things. And I think ChatGPT wins there too. But it's interesting to hear about Claude and ChatGPT and like what Ken thought about that.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway is that like there's no reason, like you need to check yourself if you're getting into like lock-in with a particular model. We mentioned last week or the week before, it's kind of a car race. One car will pull ahead, but the market pressures, like, oh, it's Claude, oh, it's GPT. So you got to keep your eyes on all these moving balls because any advancements in any one of them can improve one of the processes that you're undertaking.
This reminds me of like a Formula One race. Like you just think one winning, the other winning. Like every week there's different things happening, and it's very exciting. So far, according to Ken and his experience, GPT-5 is like 1 over Claude for technical precision, and then
which was not the case a month ago.
And he suggests that LLM cross-auditing is emerging best practice, which I think is awesome. And tool specialization beats loyalty for sure. And that's another thing. I always feel guilty a little bit when I'm like asking Grok, check ChatGPT, and vice versa. Because if you ask humans to do that, there will be like some of that stuff. But with
it's
AI,
taboo, right?
They don't care. They'll like be like, critiquing or complimenting each other. And I was like, this is very fascinating. Like, I don't have to worry about hurting their feelings. It's probably just me, but that's interesting that AI doesn't really have feelings there. So let's, any kind of key takeaway from here that?
Well, there's a question like, if you have software that leverages AI, based on this information, it really theoretically should have access to as many models as possible. But how does that work in terms of like actually delivering that to people? How does the economics of that work? I don't really know yet. We're going to find out because this landscape is emerging rapidly. I do know that it will be on a like cost per consumption type basis, which makes it a lot easier to swallow than like enterprise level pricing or like, hey, this is $29.99 a month to provide this feature in like a gross sort of ham-fisted way.
Interesting. So next thing we're moving on is there is this topic.
Sam Altman?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where I saw that from. I want to make sure I give credit to that person. That video had 250,000 views, and it was from, I did not put it in there. But anyway, the video was about, I think maybe it was Greg. I think it was Greg.
Greg Eisenberg?
Yes, I think that was his. Yep, that was his stuff. So he has a video that hit 250,000 views in 2 weeks. And in that video, he talks about how Sam Altman predicts that in the coming years, we may witness the emergence of the first one-person billion-dollar company powered by advanced AI like GPT-5, of course. That will be GPT-5 according to Sam. And the new entrepreneurial model centers of AI-first companies, one founder orchestrating AI agents instead of managing human teams. And it would be, the building blueprint would be build an audience, vibe code a product that resonates, foster a community, and automate operations with AI. And he talks about 5 mega trends enabling this shift. So this is what's happening. Services becoming software via agents doing the work. Instant digital distribution, makes sense. Platform ecosystem, OpenAI, Shopify, Supabase. I don't know what Supabase is. Do you know Supabase?
Nope.
Growing consumer trust in small indie brands and high precision advertising platforms. So what are your thoughts about that so far?
Well, I mean, the first one stands out to me. The first mega trend is services becoming software because agents are doing the work. To me, this is a huge chunk of what's happening right now. So just to call back on an earlier thing so we can continue the discussion, in the website economy, you have agencies and developers doing the work. That's a service that they provide to people who own websites, to business owners. a lot of those services are just patching things together. They're following a basic, playbook and executing that for somebody with a idiosyncratic instruction for where we want to go. A little bit of idiosyncrasy, it's by no means a majority of what is happening. All those processes are going to be undertaken by agents because, like I said, this is the only way to achieve, to really start providing idiosyncratic outcomes for a larger number of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way this is going to happen.
Okay.
And so that trend is sort of everything. Because of that, these one-person unicorns are possible because somebody could just focus on they could focus on this problem, like, we need to deliver websites, idiosyncratic websites to people. How do we do this without them having to engage in an agency or developer? And if they can solve that process flow from end to end, they're going to win. It's going to be a huge company. That would be $1 billion company right there. And these opportunities exist in so many verticals.
Yeah.
In so many verticals. I think we're going to touch on a couple of them later.
We're going to talk about what verticals that's going to be. So basically, he says a suggested agentic organizational structure is founder plus AI agents handling design, engineering, marketing, sales, support, analytics, and eventually striving for full autonomy. Crazy. Risks and limits are real: over automation, quality control breakdown, loss of human touch, and regulatory constraints. Interesting. And sectors more suited: digital products, repetitive high-value tasks, low regulation environments like social media management or content creation. So this is where they are anticipating the unicorn will emerge between 2026 and 2028. And I'm very curious to see kind of what you think.
I do think digital products is going to be one of them, but it's actually kind of trickier than it looks at first glance because, like we said before in the previous episode, a lot of these things, like a Photoshop, is becoming a commodity. You can have ChatGPT roll you out a Photoshop that suits exactly your needs. Like, I only want to use these features. I can get this. Well, that's no longer a business.
Yeah. In fact, I use ChatGPT now for image generation for every day for the show. And Grok, compared to ChatGPT, Grok is not even close. So
it's a joke. Yeah.
Is winning big time in images, at least for my taste. But anyway, so I keep going.
So we were saying, like, which sectors are most suited for these one-person unicorns? Repetitive high-value tasks. I imagine that, to me, is verticals. So, like, within medical billing, we talked about that last week. There's a lot of procedural stuff, but this is really important. We got to patch that together. That's multi-billion-dollar impact, no question about it. Law firms, which gross, that's going to come up later, but there's a lot there. It's just the facts. I think contracts. Like a lot of businesses that execute sales contracts or this kind of thing, I think the contract space generally is going to have a ton of application like this. And it goes on and on and on. You can just kind of think your way through that yourself. But
yeah, no, this is gonna be fascinating to watch because this can be will be interesting to call back to because that's kind of a very big vision. So who it's like winning a lottery. Like, who's it going to be?
Probably some young kid who's got time and has exposure to some of these problems.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll move on to the next segment, which is super spicy. And I actually got inspiration for this from our friends at Syntax Show. They talked about
this is the segment of the show.
Cloudflare blocks, AI crawlers. And they kind of give me an inspiration to start talking about that. And then I went down the rabbit hole. And basically, Cloudflare, the topic today is it the indie shield or invisible wall, right? And so Cloudflare quietly rolled out a new feature that lets website owners block AI crawlers like OpenAI, Anthropic, or Perplexity and move covered in the Syntax FM Potluck episode. It's not only by default, but it sets the stage.
But it is on by default.
It is on by default. We actually did find it in their own press release that it is on by default. And it sets the stage for a major power shift in who controls content access in the AI-driven web. So basically creators can, the pros, creators can finally protect their original work from being slurped into LLMs without credit or compensation. But the con is that blocking AI bots might hurt long-term visibility, especially if AI assistants become the next Google-style search interface. And I guess a little bit about Cloudflare. Cloudflare. They are, how would you describe them?
So Cloudflare started as a CDN, content delivery network, for websites to make websites that are image heavy, video heavy, whatever, asset heavy, to make them faster. They became sort of, they expanded their services. They're like a firewall. They can prevent you from getting like DDoSed, getting attacked, so your site will go down. Their services can help your site withstand high traffic swells that would normally take down a regular server. So it's sort of a power-up and defense mechanism and a performance enhancer. That's sort of its DNA. What is interesting to me about this is that so what they have done. So
hold on. They also power about 20% of the web. Like right. It's not some small little company. They've got like a revenue over $1 billion or something like that. And so it's going to apply to all new domains signed up with Cloudflare. So unless this is going to be, kind of checked on for you. And I thought that was really strange because anyway, but you go because you have
let's unpack this. So there's been a debate of the last couple of years as Google has started to include Gemini in its search results. A lot of content creators are saying, hey, and even like SEOs and people placing ads, they're saying, hey, well, now that the AI results are up there, people aren't seeing my ads. They get pushed down the page. My organic SEO results no longer matter. People don't have to go through to discover an answer to their question. And not only that, the search engine is scraping my content, spitting it out, sometimes verbatim, sometimes in summarized form, without citation in many cases. And the person's getting the answer, I never got the traffic. And so there's this growing sentiment that we are creating content for free that these bigger players are using for profit. I have some gripey pushback there, and sort of like 20 years ago, we created content in hopes that it would be seen, but not with the intention of profiting. I think somebody's being specious or just not accurate if they're saying I create content to make money. It's not a one-to-one. Like you have to make a product sale,
right?
Like there's that. Like traffic for money is a trend that died a long time ago. That's like a 2008 thing. I can't believe we even talk about this. But when all the benefit of having that information published on the internet goes to Google or to whomever and not to the creator, that is a valid question. What was the point of me creating this? Just to feed the Borg? I don't know. What's in it for me? That's a fair question. Now, so because there's been this tension, like, hey, I guess I don't want them just stealing my content and me getting nothing. Well, now Cloudflare's offered a service that says, hey, you can block these AI crawlers from accessing your content. They can't get your images, your videos, your words.
No, they made a default. So like now this is, unless you specifically know that you have to unblock it, they made a default, which I think is it was the other way, that's one thing. But this way, I just feel like it's kind of weird. Like, what if somebody doesn't know? So what does that mean for their Discover?
Well, here's the thing. The future is AI discoverability. You may not like it, but the reality is your audience is now machines. It's not really humans. Like this show is designed for a human audience. Shows like this will continue to be designed for a human audience. Stuff that you publish in a social media feed is largely going to continue to be for a human audience. But just publishing information on the internet that is accessible and can be used, we have to accept the reality that imagery and content is going to primarily be used by machines. And so do we sit here and like develop these tools to try and block them out to create like a moat?
Well,
or do we just sort of accept it and realize that the nature of our content production has changed.
Are they really being the knight on the white horse over here and trying to save creators, or there's something else going on?
Is the purpose of information like content that you might find on a web page, is the purpose of that content to make sales or to drive business, or is it to create an enhanced information landscape that enables greater production with the tools that are relevant to that information? I think that's the shift. The shift is we are trying to get more out of the tools we use. We need MCPs, which is sort of what content is becoming, instructions for AIs. We need that out there. That landscape needs to be rich, but the point is different, right? I'm not creating content so that people will see it, come to my website, and hopefully buy my product. That was a weak sort of flow anyway.
Right.
The reality is somehow magically your tools need to become popular, and then people need to have a thirst for the information to use those tools or to leverage those tools more effectively. So just the whole landscape is just shifting in a way that I think makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and I get it. But
well, and it's not they're not doing this for the good heart. Like they're monetizing the flow of internet content into AI models. So this isn't just a protection feature, it's just a play to become a traffic cop and a toll booth of the AI powered web. And so they're sort of like, they're in the middle between the creators and AI. And it's like, now they've got the way to charge and position themselves as the good guys. And I'm sure there's some good in that too. I'm not saying they're bad.
This is the key point. You just made the key point. So we've described it as just blocking out the AIs. But what they're actually going to do is a permission-based model where they can say, hey, AI, if you want access to this, you pay a tiny fee. Yep. That actually dovetails perfectly with that cost per consumption model that we discussed earlier that Darmesh introduced. We now have a way. So instead of Google just scraping it, taking it, and you getting nothing, we actually have a way to set up a landscape that says, hey, if you want access to this, you have to pay. It's a toll. And the toll is going to work in both directions, which actually does empower creators. It actually does. And if the information is worth getting, then that value exchange will be worthwhile, and it will work.
Right.
Now, the nature of information is that when it's blocked off and not free, it finds a way to become free.
Well,
which is a big question. Like, if you're going to charge, I'll just go somewhere that's not.
Right. If you're too small, right? Like there's obviously, I think ChatGPT pays licensing or whatever, the fees to like big publishing, sites and whatnot. But we're talking about smaller creators, right? That may not have that luxury yet. And so on the other side, maybe you don't want the AI to crawl, but then you're also not going to get the traffic that it brings, because it brings more and more traffic every day. So
but it's bot traffic.
Right. But at the same point, like the bot traffic is doing something. So who is getting Cloudflare usually? When is it like companies that buy hosting? Like when do you interact with Cloudflare?
So business websites that have a high number of pages and a high number of assets will typically do that. WordPress, for example, the proliferation of WordPress and other platforms like it have created a greater need for Cloudflare because these sites are slow. They need performance enhancement.
Okay.
CDN layers, I think of them in the same vein as I think of caching, like a way to wrap this thing up that's kind of messy, make it a little bit neater and faster. Like a ton of sites, a majority of sites have a need for something like this. I build with an opposite intent, where I want the bare bones thing with no caching to be so freaking fast that you don't even really need it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the reality of internet right now and the platforms we use. The reality is everything's slow, clunky, and needs as much enhancement as possible. So Cloudflare fits into that nicely. So businesses with larger sites, hobbyists who are very attuned to this sort of thing, like Nick Gray has his website. He uses Cloudflare. People like him have been doing that for years.
So basically, like if you use Cloudflare, just keep that in mind, that maybe you can go there and see what is happening to your permissions, because
as of July 1, it's default.
right. So make sure if you want to be discovered, that's the question for the day, then you got to make sure you turn that thing off, or at least be aware of that. That's what I want people to kind of take away from that, because that's
I just want to trace this out because other people are in the same boat. So the history of my content production on the internet has been that it was on a blog, and I got a lot of traffic, and I made sales that way. Like that was my pathway to sales and customers and eyeballs. My content production switched over to social media as of 2012, but really by 2014, it was like pretty much there, no longer blogging ever. And I'd say since 2018, all my casual content has certainly been on social media. And the only stuff I produce as web pages has been stuff people can use. So documentation, essentially, how to do this. Anything else that's like more entertainment based has and also tutorial based has become videos. And then really it's even more like just documentation and information about the software that I build. So to me, that type of content fits perfectly into the new AI landscape. But if you find yourself writing different types of content, like I think you need to find a place for this, because I think the larger internet of like, I created a web page, here's what's on it. It probably just needs to be information that's useful and usable by
and findable.
AIs.
Yes, and findable. So how would you wrap this up? This segment. What would you?
I say so. This sets up a battle between creators and these
AI firms,
AI crawlers, or these aggregators, those large aggregators of information that are constantly roaming the internet and trying to provide information to other people, because people are asking queries and the AIs need to answer the queries. This is how they gather information to do it.
Right.
So, if you're uncomfortable with that whole process, I encourage you to think about it in a more holistic way. Like, think about the larger picture. Do you want people to, if they have a question and you have the best answer to that question, do you want them to get your answer? Or do you, if you can't have citation and some benefit, do you not want that to be the case?
Yeah,
I mean, I think what it says though that's uncomfortable is it suggests to a lot of people who have a just like their fingers slipping off the edge of the Grand Canyon, they're about to fall, they've barely got a grip, and that's how useful they are, and they see this as like, oh, they're gonna fall off of this thing, and maybe that's what needs to happen. Like, you need to become more useful. What do you got to do? You got to shift operations somehow.
Well, and one last point that I want to make here is that if Cloudflare, I don't know why it's so hard for me to say L. If Cloudflare becomes a licensing broker between AI firms and the web, who sets the price of your content? Them or you, right? And so that's becoming like a very good, interesting question, because
it will be them.
They are the hall monitor that will be monitoring all of this and kind of negotiating with the AI firms on what that is. And then again, there's another, it's like, and I love lawyers because they're very helpful in a way, but like as soon as if there's a court and the person and there's a lawyer involved, like the more parties want to make money, and the more it just becomes more convoluted. And so, is that the word, convoluted?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know. It's just to me, like my ears perked up. I'm like, wow, I'm there. And another thing I learned is that that's gonna obviously become a revenue stream for them. And so that's easy, high profit margin, thing for them. So obviously there will be interesting things to see how they sell it.
So
now the default.
X and Substack have sort of attempted similar models. It's not the same as the AI, like, okay, AI beating on this thing saying, hey, I want access to this. And then the Cloudflare kicking back and saying, oh, it's going to be this many cents to get it or whatever. But X and Substack have done like subscriptions. And then people will pay for subscriptions. So if somebody's really popular and they have this little newsletter, it might be like $6.99 a month. But if somebody's not, they can't even get 99 cents.
I like that. Yep.
But the creators are supposed to select their price at one they think will float. But what everybody's finding is like the actual price is lower than what they thought.
Yeah.
And not really satisfying.
Okay.
And so I suspect that's what will happen here with, if there is Cloudflare asking for some money and the AI's beating on the door, what they'll figure out is eventually the AIs that are being queried by normal people, the 700 million people using ChatGPT, for example, there will be some incidents of this type of query happening. This question was asked 46,000 times in the last month. And so it's a hot topic. So they'll have to pay more for answers to that, like stuff that's important. We need to find the best answer. It's worth paying for. And the stuff that's low volume is going to be almost not worth anything.
Yeah.
So somehow that, it will, the pricing will naturally fall out from that. It'll be interesting to see what that eventually looks like.
Interesting development over there. Okay, so very quick segment I wanted to kind of point out, since I am in the kind of recruiting world. I saw this interesting trend or news these days is that AI is a mandatory, not optional. That's the shift in the bigger companies. So Google, Meta, Microsoft now mandate AI usage at all levels, from engineers to marketing teams. Internal productivity tracking, so they started tracking that. Like this week, it showed a 10% jump in weekly engineering output due to AI at Google. So they are tracking AI usage per employee and kind of what is the impact of that, right? So it's no longer it's nice to have. It's basically becoming a measurable performance booster. And there's going to be it's kind of like use AI or get out of your career. So it's no longer like a nice to have, it's a must have. And the new workplace hierarchy isn't the job title, it's AI fluency. And it starts obviously with engineering and the tech positions, because that's where the most pressure is happening. But what I'm anticipating is going to move into every other position as well, because they're going to start tracking that and notice that. So AI skill gap is now a professional moat. And the same shift is coming to for creators, agencies, and small teams. And so what I wanted to kind of talk about is, are your tools showcasing AI ROI yet? Right? And I'm a business owner. I love ROI because like whatever I do, I want to make sure there is some kind of return on my investment. And I'm sure everybody who's listening us here kind of cares about that too. But what are your thoughts about all of that? Kind of hearing that they're really tightening up the grip on, you must do this now or else.
Well, it's fascinating because everything points towards the great refactoring.
Mm-hmm.
This tightening says we're accelerating in this direction, and there's an inevitability about it now. We're not going to avoid this. Like, here's a quote from the show. At Google, the message isn't subtle anymore. Use AI for everything or risk becoming obsolete. These companies are saying, we know that the potential gains here are big enough that we're not willing to spend time on anything else right now. We are prioritizing this above everything else. Basically, they're tasking their employees with find gains with this. These are the only gains we're interested in you finding right now. And I think at a place like Google, this is probably the most sane way to proceed, because what do we know about big companies and big bureaucracies and big systems? They're sclerotic. They don't work. They get calcified. Things stop moving. This is like an end around all the existing processes and all the crap and legacy crap that these companies build up. It's a way to say, all right, we're shedding this. You've got a new initiative. We can actually figure something out. Like if I'm Sundar Pichai at Google or something, like this is the only thing I can do. I mean, literally, I can't do anything else. I don't feel like I can make any other gains.
Well, one of the interesting things I saw was that know your AI impact before the client asks, or your manager asks, right? Or whoever you report to asks, because that's going to become a big theme. And so, for example, I was working on the segment and I thought, this is an interesting topic because I do have some bots in my company that I use for certain things. Like, for example, for the show, this is the practical AI implementation that I did yesterday. I tracked and I created a prompt after each query I did with researching for the show. I asked ChatGPT, tell me how much time was spent and how much time would I spend if I didn't have, ChatGPT helping me. So it helped me see what was my ROI in my time yesterday that I was preparing for this and 2 days before. And I spent physical hours, about 4 hours preparing for this. But AI spent human hours. What it told me was about 27 hours. And then you can calculate what your hourly fee and how much you spend on AI. So my ROI was like 45x. And I was like, holy cow, that's just for me. This was fun for me. And I'm going to start doing that more in my company as well, and kind of see what that looks like. But mind blowing. What are your thoughts about what do you see? Like, what are you thinking when I'm talking about all this?
Well, I mean, if you're not looking at what you're doing through the lens of how can I improve these processes? How can I make them less manual, more automated? If you're not doing that, like you're just not operating in the current timeline. Like you're not on it. And if you're not, you are certainly about to get beat by somebody who is. Certainly going to get beat by somebody who is. There's no way around it. So I think about this analogy. It's so funny to me. So like in school, in math classes in particular, they'll have you like write out these proofs and go through these tortured things to solve a problem that a computer could solve in a moment, you know? And I always wonder, like, what's the valor in this? To show that I can repeat a process that's already been proven? What the hell what is it? Does it show that I'm smart? Or does it show that I just sat there and bulldogged it and could memorize and like re-execute this thing that's already been done? It seems so meaningless to me. But the reality of like business, my first 20 plus years in business, you see this kind of thing everywhere. Oh, we do this semi-complicated thing, but really we just have these human bots repeating these semi-complicated or torturous processes, torturous because our systems suck. And we're pretending this is valuable. It isn't. And so this AI enhancement for doing all this stuff is basically saying, you don't need to show me the math proofs. I don't need you to go through these goofy processes. There's no valor in it. And there's really no upside.
Well, what made me think about this is that AI hype, I mean, you hear this everywhere. AI this, AI that, I added this, AI. Yeah, that's great. But what caught my Russian, why should I care, is AI accountability, right? And that's what I think is where it's heading right now, is that what is the accountability that you're using these tools? They're great, amazing, yada, yada. But how can you start showing your clients, or how can I start showing my team, myself, my clients, whatever stakeholders I have, what is the AI ROI, right? What did it actually do that is not just cute, but actually helpful, right? And so AI accountability, it's like really kind of touched my Russian heart yesterday. I was like, oh, I like this a lot. And so kind of like, how do we build these tools now, right? Or something like that. Like I built my prompt and like, it's awesome. And now I just put in a little sheet and I see how much time I'm saving myself. And it's like super empowering to see how I'm using it every day to save me hours. So anyway, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we have this phrase or saying, what have you done for me lately? I need a report from AI. What did you do for me lately? Like, what did you actually do for me? That is super interesting, because if you think about it from the perspective of an employer, it's actually a hard question to answer. What did your employees do for you? This is a nebulous thing. Like, companies don't really have a great handle on this. Some of them want to act like they do, but they really don't. We can actually get a handle on this now as well. It's sort of like the idea of serving all these idiosyncratic nodes. This is a similar thing. We can greater quantify the productive use of our time.
Yeah. Well, and that's an idea that the other week we had an idea for the company, right? What was it called?
Contrarian.ai.
Contrarian.ai, that will kind of, what was it? It would
push back on all your claims.
Push back on all your, yeah, it's not going to be your, like a friendly AI. Well, this week's idea for the company is, how do you build an AI ROI tool for employers or for anybody who wants to use, like, how is AI actually tracking and how much time it's saving and what's the ROI? Because we're going to talk about a segment in a little bit that shows you the revenue ROI. But to me, this is fascinating, and I want to see more.
Could be the unicorn agent.
Yeah, who knows? But AI productivity, I'm all in. Bring me some. AI accountability, I mean, so bring me some. So anything last minute kind of thoughts on this before I move on?
No, I think we're good there.
All right. Well, speaking of practical AI, on creating actual revenue, there's this interesting company that apparently there's a startup out of Israel that's using AI to find class action lawsuits before anyone even files them. It's called Darrow, and it's redefining legal discovery in a way that could spill over into any high volume, patent rich profession. So, what do? It basically AI finds your lawsuit before your lawyer did. And so Darrow uses AI to scan online complaints, privacy policies, consumer forums, and behaviors. It compares findings to legal frameworks and flags potential class action worthy violations. And then it sells these lawsuits ideas to law firms and even finds plaintiffs through targeted ads. The crazy part, the revenue in 2025 is $50 million, and they have 80 law firm customers. It blew my mind. It's AI as a business generator and not just assistant. To me, this business is like, I want to stay away as far as possible, but it's an amazing, like, what do you think? Like, this is crazy.
I think I'm going to be sick. This is just what we needed. An AI hall monitor Karen feeding bloodthirsty lawyers so they can go gut the treasure chests of big businesses. This is what
the proof is in the revenue. Okay, they are selling this, and this sells.
Oh, so. I know, but I mean, my goodness, this feels like it's like high pressure tactics, like gun to head kind of stuff. Like, you were out of compliance in this one case, and we've got a class action lawsuit to bring.
Well,
like, holy cow, gang.
Well, but how, like, this is funny and crazy, and it's funny, haha, but they're actually making money on them. Good for them. But this is a question that it will be interesting to think about. How do we use AI as a business generator, right? They clearly figured this out. How can we use this playbook to kind of build more cases like that? So I'm very curious. Like, do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, anytime you can survey a large data set looking for things that have business potential or actualization potential, that's a perfect candidate for you turn some AIs loose on this large data set, you have them make sense of it and say, okay, hey, we know this is something you can use. I think there's a lot of those opportunities. So some fields that came up, I think they got mentioned in some of the notes, things like logistics. So like that's actually a pretty advanced field in the United States, for example, like trucking, optimizing routes, picking up the maximum amount of stuff so that they waste as few miles, unloaded miles in the trucks as possible. This kind of thing. AI should be excelling in these types of tasks and just optimizing like every movement. This legal thing is a gross example of that, but
I mean, again, like, it's making money. So that means we've been looking at AI as
I'm not sure that means anything.
No, my point is that it starts like that, right?
Yes,
and then you start implementing, like, how else can I use this business intelligence to start selling? There's a lot of lead generation companies, there are a lot of all those things, but like there's this clearly they're paying attention to the signals, right? I'm on the sales side. So the signals is what AI is going to be amazing at. So these companies figure out what the signals are on the consumer side with complainers, and how do they package this up and sell it?
Right,
so
right.
Application cases are so huge, and I'd love to see more business generator, AI as a business generator, and as well as obviously productivity. But yeah.
Well, one way to think about this is like that's a specific application, like for law firms doing class action lawsuits. Okay,
very specific, right?
Another way to think about this is like we have a friend who has a big time internet company that basically does ad arbitrage in tons of verticals. Like think like crushes it on Black Friday kind of thing, sells 600 different products on Amazon, or help affiliate sells many products on Amazon, things like that. And to take advantage of these blow ups and trends and stuff that happen throughout the year. They don't sell a specific product or operate in a specific vertical. They're just constantly searching for what's hot and adapting.
Mm-hmm.
AI could do a similar thing here, where you have a company that doesn't specialize in a specific vertical, but looks for things that get hot and patch together information flows or whatever to assist in capitalizing on hotness.
Yeah.
So it's like sort of like a meta evaluator, where it's not just one industry. It's kind of looking around, looking for opportunities basically, an opportunity spotter, like, the guy in the lighthouse with the spyglass, figuring out exactly where the attention needs to be turned next. And there's definitely ways to capitalize on that kind of thing. There's going to be some interesting companies that are doing that. Like they're not specific. They're only specific in their ability to capitalize on trends.
Yeah. No, and again, this is why I'm happy you're here watching this, because I want you guys to start thinking like, where is your niche and how can you use this playbook? Because clearly, look what's happening. I'm happy.
So we had that website that the guy did on Greg Eisenberg's show in our last show.
Yeah.
We highlighted where he built like that mobile diesel repair.
Mm-hmm.
You could have an AI scanning for this and identify, there's 37 US markets that are underserved in these 3 key areas. And it builds up, 100 and whatever sites, 111 sites to serve these things. And now suddenly you've got leads for 111 service businesses in all these various markets. Like what, and what if you got a automated communications, call center support kind of thing? Like, do you have a $100 million company?
Maybe our show will end up turning into some of that, like some ideas on what you can do with all these trends. I love that. Somebody will take and run with that. So wrapping this up, we've got 2 more segments left. One of them that I almost did not include, but then something about it, I was like, no, I gotta include this, because this is more of a high level segment, is about teacher sites to think, what if the web could learn? And this guy, I've never heard of him, Richard Sutton. He's an AI pioneer. Do you know who he is?
I do not.
Have you heard of him? And so apparently he's a big guy in the space. I looked him up. He looks legit. And he's pushing back against the LLM arms race. In his latest work, he introduces OAK, Options and Knowledge, a vision for AI that learns continuously, plans actions, and builds its own understanding over time. And basically, he says that AI systems should learn from real-world interaction, create abstract features from experience, set and solve their own reward-based problems, and plan using self-learned models of the world. His beef is that currently, the AI LLMs currently do just like static models that memorize massive data, and that's how they learn. He thinks that they should learn more like humans.
Feedback loops.
And that's why I wanted to bring that up, because billions are being spent scaling up models that can't adopt post-deployment, and Sutton's approach suggests a smarter path, not just more compute, but better feedback loops. And so what do you think about that? Why does it matter? And is it just, another scientist kind of waving some orange flags, or is this actually kind of something to really consider? Because, what do you think?
Well, I think it's just a little conceptual shift. And to me, it feels like decentralization versus centralization. So ChatGPT, for example, is a centralized model. You go to it, you ask it queries, it's got its large data set, it attempts to acquire the best answer to your question,
right,
and help you out. What Sutton is describing feels like a model that, like, for example, might be placed inside PageMotor. And its goal is not to have all the information on the internet, but it's to observe the behaviors on the website and the content on the website, and just to provide continuous feedback on that. Like, it's examining the visitors to the website, saying people are going to this page. Oh, hey, do this in response. And I sort of imagine that's really the best use case for AI anyway. Like, that's decentralized. That's sent out to your specific use case. Again, this theme of specificity and idiosyncrasy. Like, I want an AI to serve me specifically and to examine what I'm doing, which is also an idiosyncratic activity. Hey, look at me.
Mm-hmm.
There's 8 billion people. I need you to look at me, not at the larger internet. And, figure out what is actually happening in this particular environment. To me, that decentralized deployment of an AI is way more preferable. Like, if you want to get my attention, tell me I can do this. Tell me I can embed this and have this thing learning in my environment. Now we're talking.
Well, and that's what his OAK loop, right? The options and knowledge loop is basically it learn what actions drive reward 2, discover new behavioral features. 3, prioritize features by utility. Define sub-goals based on features. Create options. Learn outcomes of options. Plan which option to try. And track what works, refine over time. So to me, this sounds like a very human approach, but apparently that's not how LLMs are trained right now. And so they're trained on a lot of data. And what he's saying is that this is kind of like preparing LLM for a demo versus helping them think as humans. And that's a big thing. And what the real world application was, self-evolving interfaces that will track user behavior in real time, click, scrolls, dwell time, whatever, discover high impact features like time spent on FAQs, test layout or content options, predict which options drive results for different user types, and then continuously adjust interface without manual redesigns. Sounds kind of like really out there, but do you think that's a possibility? Is that something that could be done with a plugin? Is it something like, how does it even look like?
Well, all right. So let's retrace steps here. So search on the internet was like a find function, a primitive find function. You're looking for a word in a file. That's how it was. Then it's evolved into more of a Q&A thing. That's what LLMs and AIs are kind of doing. They're question and answer. You ask a question, it gives you an answer. That's Q&A. What is happening here is action and outcome. It's the evolution. Find this keyword. Okay, we've got a significant question with a significant answer, but I actually want to do something with this information. Action and outcome. That's actually useful. That's like where the rubber meets the road. That is putting stuff into practice. That's the only part of the equation, or the only part of this whole thing that I find interesting and like useful. Q&A is one thing, but I want to use this.
Well, right. And like your website, you build it and then it learns from its users and it adjusts based on kind of what it's learning. I mean, it's kind of sounds really, again, to me, it sounds like crazy. That's why I wanted you to look at it, because you're the brains. And how would that actually look like? Would that be like a plugin, an agent? Like how would that,
it would be an agent that lives on your site and examines everything. So here's how this works now. How it's mostly employed on the internet right now is you have a website, you put your Google measurement ID on there, and then it tracks it. It tracks your visitors, and then you can go look at this overly rich data set of information. You have like an SEO or PPC person look at this stuff and scrutinize it, and you figure out ways to use that data to make more money, to refine your pages, enhance your stuff to make more money. Now that is a tortured process right now. It's not easy to like understand the data, to draw actionable conclusions from that data. There's a lot of trial and error. This is a heavy manual process. You got to look at the data, say, okay, well, this is telling me we need to operate here. Let's go make these changes. A couple weeks later, here's what the results were. This worked,
it sounds
and then
very
we move along. So this proposes, or to me, I immediately imagine, well, I've got, instead of having that Google code on my site, I've got this agent that is constantly examining the site, and it's performing that high level function of saying, well, here's the rewards we're after. We want people to go to the sales page. We did this little tweak, and now more people are going to the sales page. Here's some suggestions for doing more of this. Or this page needs to be optimized. This page had 3 more visitors from search this week. But here were some other queries. Here's how we might be able to bolster this. Like those kinds of really complex and highly detailed like data analysis things should be happening by an LLM that's constantly observing your website.
So what you're saying is that you can install like this kind of agent on your site that is sort of trained to critically think like a human in a way, I guess, using this loop, right?
It has a job. Your job is to examine the website and make proposals.
And then so instead of like kind of like A/B testing, this is gonna be like AI driven evolution. So the systems will improve without kind of retraining or rebuilding. So it's kind of like, this is what, so it sounds like another agency, another company that you can start marketing this thing. It's like, how do you teach your website how to become better by itself?
Well, it would have to fit into a context. PageMotor provides that context. So this could live inside PageMotor. And I don't know what is this magical piece that I can take in, and what is this LLM that does this? We need that. That's a thing that's needed. Some unicorn company is going to make this drop-in thing that is like your little site robot Because right now it's like piecemeal. It's like Google, and you could add some other script services in there and like, figure this stuff out and do this whole manual review of graphs and stuff that you don't understand. But I want that all.
Because right now you still have to prompt AI for this kind of stuff. What he's saying is that it's sort of like teaches itself.
It needs to constantly be living there and operating and giving you a report every day, which is not the way these centralized models work at this time.
Okay. Well, and last piece, let's breeze through this, where the money is going. We'll talk about that. The segment that I saw that was kind of interesting, that Sam Altman was at some dinner in San Francisco and told the reporters that he thinks the AI bubble is real, it's upon us, and there's a lot of signs, I guess, where it's heading that way. Where there's $100 million rounds for pre-product teams. Like there's all these different things that he's concerned about, that someone is going to get burned. And so what do you think about that? Do you think it's closer than we think? Do you think it's not as close as we think? What's your...
well, everything happens faster now. Bubbles in the past were slower moving, took like a year and a half to unfold. This is going to be almost immediate. And I hinted at this earlier when I said that the real AI solutions that have traction and that work are boring.
Yeah.
Hypey stuff, we're in a hype era. Hypey stuff is not boring by definition. It's exciting. But the reality is the stuff that's going to have staying power and that's really going to matter is not a bunch of buzzwords and crap. It's stuff that figures out boring grunt work and smooths out these processes that are tortured. Well, and it's not sexy, but it works.
And speaking of AI bubble, this past week we had there's over $1 billion was raised in the world across 40 deals. USA dominates again, surprise, surprise, with nearly 74% of AI dollars went to US. Japan had just under 7%, China 4%. Europe woke up, had 4% compared to not even 1% last week. So things are moving. China, I'm still kind of skeptical of China. I don't think they're really showing the real numbers.
Well, they're showing like actual like private investment type stuff. But
right,
again, their government does most of the investment, and it's enormous.
So China, I'm kind of skeptical because so far they're way under the radar. USA is definitely the winner all around every week. So 28 companies in the US raised money. Core AI ML platforms absorbed the bulk of dollars. And there's also real estate AI, Elise AI. They got
AI, yeah.
$250 million. And then we also supply chain and logistics got some money, and fintech and compliance. We talked about.
Gross.
So vertical AI is kind of a major share of weekly activity. So overall, compared to last week, US is still kind of winning. So this is kind of weird. I would just like overhype about AI in the US. Or are we really leading the way and like this is just part of the deal, part of being the frontier? I don't know, but I guess the time will show.
Well, it's 80-20. 20% is going to be meaty. I love the vertical investments like the real estate AI one, like certainly going to be a thing. Think about how, you're looking for a new house in the Austin market and there's 6,500 properties available right now. And you've got to like tell your real estate agent these criteria, and they plug that into the MLS, and they got this real crappy primitive thing that kind of spits back stuff, and it never quite fits. And you're always kind of hunting, and there's just too much personal involvement and too little good results. Like it's just not good. Like something needs to be faster.
Yeah.
Serve me this on a platter. I want it to be like way more closely matched to what I'm looking for. Neighborhood wise, house style wise, all that stuff. Like real estate has a long way to go. It always has. It's a cumbersome, information heavy thing. There's different facets of this that really work. You've got a lot of contractual stuff that people pay through the nose for to agents, and agents are all snooty about this, like thinking this is some like special function that they do and they're worth all this money because they push paper. nonsense. AI is going to blow that out of the
Well,
water.
so Elise AI, they raised 250 million, and they automate property management with conversational AI. 250 million automate property management.
Well, I didn't know that was specifically property management. It's funny they're in New York City.
Overhaul, another USA company, 105 million. AI for supply chain risk and freight monitoring, overhaul.com.
Yep.
Nairo, USA, 97 million. Autonomous delivery vehicles and licensing. And then Japanese company TerraCharge got 70 million. EV charging infrastructure for housing and fleets. And IVIX, Israel, AI detecting tax evasion and money laundering for governments, got 60 million. So
people, patriots out there, we need to be working the other direction.
Got 57% of global AI dollars this week. So anyway, that's it for the segment. Unless you have something else to say, I wanted to kind of give a quick update on PageMotor.
It's great to know where the money's going. So this week there was more stuff in verticals. It was a little more widespread. Last week it was big infrastructure bets on like the overall computing power.
Yeah.
But this week we're seeing a spread into verticals. I expect to see, and we'll see if this holds up, I expect to see a shift towards boring. Like I think for the next 6 months, we're going to see a big shift towards boring.
Real problems, this needs to happen.
Yep, but we'll see. We'll see. Hype goes hard, so it'll probably still be pretty hypey for a while.
So, do you want to give a quick update on PageMotor? What's happened?
I mean, I can give a little teaser. I don't want to spend too much time on this.
Yeah, just a minute or two. I mean,
right, I'll do a little quick demo. So we'll share screen. So little PageMotor update here. So the big news of the week is that modular content is now working. So let's take a look at this. So what is modular content? Modular content is content on your website that doesn't have a URL associated with it. Think of something like an email form, an email opt-in form, a product pitch, an author bio. This is something you might want to appear in a few places on your website, but you don't want to have a specific page dedicated to it. It would be nice if you could say, hey, on this page, show this thing, or show this thing right here at this point in this page. That's what modular content enables you to do. So I've got a couple pieces here. We're going to look at modular content, which spits out a bunch of nonsense. So I'm going to use this one. I created this. Here's what it is. It is a piece of modular content that uses a short code to spit out the current year. Because if you were just to write something in a post, say this was, this is updated for 2025. Well, in 2026, it's going to say 2025. That stinks. If you use something dynamic, that's what a short code does. It will always spit out the current year. So that functionality is enabled now too, but we're going to go back here. We're going to go to content types. We're going to go to page.
It's so fast. It's insane how fast it is.
It is super snappy. So I've already included it, but we're going to pretend I didn't do that. And so I want to add that modular content right here in my content. So I can select modular content. I'll select which one I want to insert. It was called modular content. We're going to insert that, and it spits out the short code for that right here. We will save the page. We'll go look at the page. And here it is. Here's the thing. Here's a piece of modular content that spits out the current year's replaced by 2025. I've got some spacing stuff I got to work out later. That's not a big deal right now, but that is pretty fascinating stuff. So now if I change that modular content, I don't have to go back into this post and change it. It will just change everywhere this content shows up. So that makes it powerful. This is an example of a one-to-many interaction. I make one change, it changes in many places. That is maximum leverage. That's what we want to see when we create and use content in a way that works for us. I'll show you one other thing. Notice this guy here at the top of the page. This is a banner. This is a site-wide banner, so you can say like, hey, there's a sale going on now. Go to this page, check it out. This is a new little feature I added too. This uses modular content, but we go into our theme settings, editable elements, and we can say that we want to specify content to use as our banner. If you don't specify anything, I'll just show you this real quick. If we don't specify anything, we go look at the page. Nothing's on the page. There is no banner, nothing at the top. But we go back over here, we specify that we want to show the banner. We can display this for everybody we can display it for everybody except logged in users, or we can display it only for logged in users. So you've got multiple ways to use this. Now, this is for the banner, but if you had a different piece of modular content, you could change those visibility settings as it suits you. So we'll save that and we'll go look. And now the banner is back on the site. Now, it's not showing up in yellow because I got some other issues there I got to resolve. But bottom line is you will be able to add a banner to your website with modular content. It's just that easy. It will not show up if you have not specified modular content. It will if you do. Pretty cool.
Awesome.
So all that stuff is working. Modular content now works. You can deploy that in the content editor, which is very powerful. You can use short codes to refer to modular content, and I've made that easy by changing the interface, so you can now see IDs very quick. Oh, share this tab instead. Sorry. You can see IDs. Like here's the ID of this thing. I know what the short code's going to be.
Love it.
Short codes get output automatically in the editor, so that's super easy. And
it's so bad. I'm so proud of this. This is amazing.
Thank you. So a lot more going on, and all that's coming in PageMotor 0.3 beta, which I think I'm going to drop next week. I'm still working on some stuff, and I've really got to give this some consideration, but I've changed a lot of basic data modeling stuff. So there's a lot of stuff the beta participants are going to have to do to get on board with this, but it is, it's going to be a super powerful new setup for everybody.
And all the new people that are watching, what is, just very quickly, what is PageMotor and why should people care?
All right. PageMotor is, you can think of it as a replacement for WordPress. It's a content management system for your website. But what it really is it's designed from the ground up with a real simple exchange of information. Like you tell the system something very simple, it can do very complex things for output. That is perfectly suited for the AI landscape we find ourselves in. So for example, there's plugins. If you want to do anything with your website at all, you add a plugin. You can add functionality like the old school WordPress way, like I'm adding, e-com or whatever. But if you want to perform an integration, you want to patch something together, you want to create a new process flow for you or your business, you would achieve that with a plugin. Well, these plugins can now be built with AI. And a lot of people in the PageMotor beta are experiencing with it or experimenting with this and building the first generation of AI plugins, which is pretty rudimentary for now. But the potential here is unlimited. And now with PageMotor 0.3 beta, which will be out soon, that's getting ramped up to a whole new level. Like pretty much a plugin can do anything with the website. And the AI models will, when we give them the full MCPs, the model context protocols, and a little bit of markdown documentation, they're going to be able to run wild with this. Even free versions, you could seed with a little bit of data. They'll be able to crush this. It'll be amazing.
So PageMotor is definitely the way of the future of how things are going to be.
There's no question. If you're publishing content to the internet, this is the way you're going to need to be doing it. If you want to own it yourself and do that, this is the way to do it.
Awesome. Well, it was definitely more than an hour and 15 minutes. I'm going to work on my timing. So we'll get it better next time. But this was a lot of fun. Thanks for joining. And thanks for being in the know with us. Here you learn all the latest and greatest. So that way, the best case scenario, you can use it and do something with it. The worst case scenario, you just sound really smart next time you're having coffee with someone. So either way, you're winning. We're here to help you win. And this was sponsored by PageMotor. And to learn more, there's going to be some links later down the road. Anything else you have to say?
Links in the description of the video. We also did link Darmesh's post and the Cloudflare release in the description. So you can check those out if you'd like. But other than that, we'll be back with more next week.
Next week at 11 Central. See you guys later.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. We're out of here.
Thanks for being here. Bye.
See you later.